Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Search Off the Record podcast. Our plan for this series is to talk a bit about what's happening at Google Search, how things work behind the scenes, and who knows, maybe have some fun along the way. My name is John Mueller. I'm a search advocate on the search relations team here at Google in Switzerland, and I'm joined for this episode by Martin and Gary, also on the search relations team. Our guest today is Duy from the search quality team. Duy, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes. I'm so sorry. Gary told me to do that. Thank you for having me. I'm Duy. I'm from the search quality team based in California.
Cool. So maybe it's just me and me being the newbie on the team. What exactly is the search quality team?
So I mostly focused on the low quality and spam aspect of the work, but basically we have a lot of signals and a lot of new websites and pages we look at every day. How do we rank the high quality results while demoting low quality or spam ones? So that's basically the search quality team.
So cool.
That's really, really nice. Yeah. What brought you to a team that looks at the lower quality part of the web?
I'm a curious person. Before joining Google, I worked a lot of different roles, but I also worked on marketing and search engine optimization. So I've always been interested in how search works and how do you gather information and make sure that people can find it. How do you tell search engines that, oh, hey, I have this piece of information. Can you rank it in a way that, people can search for a query and then my results would come with the relevant search queries? So I saw this job posting on Google. It looks interesting. If, people are doing SEO and some people are doing bad stuff and spam search engine, how do you guys fight against that as the Google search engine of the world? So I was curious, and with my previous web development and SEO knowledge, I thought I could offer some help. So yeah, here I am.
That is amazing. I think the first time I came in contact with web spam I remember the first thing I built with PHP on my own website was a counter, like a visitor counter. And then the second thing was a guest book. And oh my God, it was a simple form that was sent back to the server and then saved into a database. I think in the beginning, even just like a file. And within days, I had so many entries in my guest book, and I was like, woohoo, so many people commented in my guest book, and it was all spam.
Oh, man.
Oh, God, those were the days.
I'm sorry for that, Martin. I mean, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Not really. I mean, I don't know. Gary, was it you?
It was probably Gary, yeah.
Yeah, it probably was me.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for ruining that website for me.
You're welcome. Anytime.
So annoying. Okay. Yeah. So what did you end up doing, Martin? Did you add anti-spam measures? Did you add signals?
Oh my God. I wish I would be as smart as Duy is back when I wrote that. And I couldn't figure it out. I basically just built in like a very basic version of the CAPTCHA, and that all surprisingly drove away 95% of the spammers apparently, because it was no longer a super simple target. But then I still got a lot of bad posts, and I just decided to take it down.
Oh my gosh.
How would you actually detect that?
So for such low quality or spammy content, it's relatively easy. If you're a person and you look at a page that's full of gibberish, or in this case, guest books with spammy post, you should be able to say that emphatically, yes, this is spam within, seconds. Even if it's more complicated, with a trained eye, it should take less than a minute to determine if something is spammy or not. And as Google, we have all these signals and all these data that we've accumulated and analyzed and studied over the years. So, it's entirely possible to collect those data, to study it, and build things like machine learning models to tackle spam. Machine learning model is interesting because it has so many use cases. It recommends music for you. You trust it enough to drive cars around so you don't have to drive. So building machine learning models for spams turns out to be a pretty natural step for us. So yeah, we have so many data around not just search result, but specifically spam. So we were able to build a very effective and comprehensive machine learning model that basically took care of most of the obvious spam. It basically took over all the heavy lifting so we can focus on more important work.
So cool. So if that model were to run across Martin's guest book with all of these friendly, non-people visitors, what would it do? Would it say like Martin is a spammer, or like how would you treat that website?
So for sites that were specifically built for spam, we basically demote them so they never show up for relevant queries. For sites that are overrun with spam, like you have a mix of very good quality content and then part of your sites are being overrun by spam, we have manual actions to help the webmasters and let them know that, oh yeah, this is happening. You should take care of that. Actually, we just published a blog post yesterday about this. So we would send you a notification and then we would explain that portion of your site is really overrun by spam. Mostly this is a guest book or a forum or the comment section that you should just go in, and nowadays it's relatively easy to take care of spam. Yeah, you have a ton of measures and tools if you use CMSs.
So cool. So basically, if you ran across Martin's guest book, you would try to figure out who this person is and send them a notification. I guess finding out who the person is just based on things like Search Console accounts. Like if Martin is verified in Search Console and he still had his guest book running and it was overrun like this and we noticed it, we would say, hey, Martin, clean up your site.
Yeah, we shouldn't punish the entire site that Martin's been building because one of the pages is spam, right? That's something we really care about, the good content. So yeah, we would try to ask Martin to clean it up and help him verify that.
So it was a smart move that my guest book content was on a separate page. So you would kill that page, never show it in search results, but all the other fantastic content that I'm sure I had back in the day, like lots of cat images and stuff, probably has been fantastically well ranked.
Yeah, so it's even more important that you are verified in Search Console. So if we detect that your site is hacked or part of it is being abused for spam, we can let you know immediately. We're pretty good with that.
It happened a few times to me as well, actually, in the past with different websites. Yeah. That's a really nice tool, I think.
What do you do with your website, Martin?
Hey, I had comments on my blog. I had lots of fantastically well-written content on my blog. Basically, I know that it's fantastically well-written and useful because I wrote it for myself because I forget things. So I learned a thing, I figured out how to do something, and then I wrote a blog post, and 6 months later, I would Google for the thing, and then my blog would come up. But when I had comments enabled, I had the exact same problem. I really could not be arsed to implement some sort of spam fighting measures. So I got a manual action at some point and I was like, okay, that's annoying. So I disabled comments.
Okay. It's way to throw everything out just because of a little bit of spam.
That's why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, how did you recognize it was spam? Did you realize at the time that it was around SEO, or did it just look like, why are these bots posting on my site?
I mean, I had a tech blog and the comments were like, hey, you want to buy cheap Viagra? And I'm like, maybe they haven't actually read the article. Maybe they just are not even human. As Duy said, you get the feeling, and with a trained eye, I could determine that to be spam.
So cool. Yeah.
I don't know how cool that was, really. It was not cool.
Yeah.
Don't do spam, kids. Not even
When
once.
you say trained eye, do you mean that you trained yourself to spam and that's how you recognize the others spamming, or?
So I would say that if you just look at spam a few times, then you immediately know what it is. It's really not difficult. Oftentimes it's just gibberish or a bunch of keyword stuff together. What do spammers really think that this is 1998? We're still building web pages with front page or Dreamweaver, and adding 500 spammy keywords would make it do well in search engines in general. I'm very curious to understand why they think that would work, but it should be very obvious.
So do you think a lot of this is just old scripts just being run on autopilot, or how do you see that?
I think it's just lazy. I think they want to rank a piece of content. Maybe it's low quality, maybe it's spam. But then instead of, spending that time to write a relevant article for it, building a site with good user experience, with categories, with tagging, with all these helpful user experience, they simply write a script to generate something very fast and simple and just spread it around, hoping that one of these would rank well in search and make them some small amount of money.
I mean, this is very similar to the phishing and scam attacks on email. Because there, when you read the emails, the scam emails about the Narnian prince sending you an email about heritage and whatever, or inheritance, when you read it, it's very obvious to you that maybe I shouldn't reply, perhaps. But then, I don't know, one person out of 1,000 will actually reply with data that they can use to make some money out of. If you have a script that's running on autopilot and spamming the web, quite literally the whole web, then if you make money out of, I don't know, with one spam comment that you left out of, I don't know, millions of comments, there's your money. And you didn't invest all that much into it.
Yeah, I think that the fact is that there's a lot of people trying to spam Google. Actually, we publish every year that, for the most recent figure we had was every day we discover about 40 billion pages that are spam. It's actually not a typo, it's billion with a B. And when users search stuff on Google, less than 1% of search queries would land on a spammy page. So a lot of work went into detecting and removing those spammy queries. So at the end of the day, I think it's still possible to do that, to prevent these spammy and manipulative content from reaching users. And that's what we focus on every day. We have enough signals and solutions to deal with these.
Yeah, when I read that number of the number of kind of spammy pages we discover every day, it really blew my mind. It's like amazing to see how much energy must be put into just creating a giant mass of pages. And it's really cool to see that the quality of the search results is extremely high. It's like every now and then I will run into something where I'd say, oh, this is pretty spammy, or like this is redirecting, or this is obviously someone's expired domain and they're hosting something else on it now. But it's really rare that I run into these kind of things on like normal searches that I do. So that's like, I don't know how many gazillion people you have working on this, but it's been working really well, I think.
Yeah, that's an Asian proverb. I'm not sure how to translate this, but it's literal translation. It's like the more you sweep the floor, the more dust you find. So if you really try to find spam, you may come across that. But overall, even in my personal day-to-day uses of Google search, I really don't come across spam all that much. And that's what we strive for. Less than 1% of whatever you search for should be, surfacing some bad stuff. And more than 99% of your time should go towards like high quality and relevant results.
Yeah. So what kind of things do you still find problematic on the web? Like, where does our impact kind of come to its limits, or I don't know how to frame it.
I would say hack spam is still a problem for the ecosystem. Many sites still run on older versions of CMSs, or, they use outdated plugins or templates. If you think about it, well, personally, I don't know anyone that still runs Windows Vistas. And if you have friends that still run Windows Vistas, you probably judge them, right? So can we do that as the web ecosystem if people still run really outdated CMSs? Can we help them to get on, a version that is extremely more secure? A lot of the hack spam that took place today is barely any hacking. A lot of the tools and scripts that, people discovered like 5-6 years ago, sometimes still being used today to exploit websites, especially like older websites. I think at the very least, we should make it a lot more difficult for these spammers to hack into sites and spread spammy or malware content. Because when users visit your website, like if they visit Martin's tech blog, they don't expect to walk away with ransomware or malware. I think we have enough resources and cooperation in the ecosystem to make that happen. I really look forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's super tricky too, because I don't know how other people run their websites, but for me, I would put up a new blog and put some content on it because I thought like, oh, it's like I will spend a lot of time, write a lot of stuff here. And then I just never get to it. And then it just keeps running and running and running. And if you don't activate the automatic updates, then suddenly you're running this old version. And you're like, oh, I don't really have time to deal with it. And you don't even realize what is happening there. And I imagine at mass, like looking at like the bigger part of the web, there are lots of small companies that just have their site kind of running like that, where it's like, oh, like people can find my phone number and that's good enough. And they don't realize that they're potentially causing a problem for the bigger web just by keeping things running on something that is essentially outdated.
I would also say that the very least they can do in those situations is to sign up for Search Console, because then they would have more data, where they would realize that, oh yeah, running this very old version of CMS really hinder the site's potential. Maybe, it's just a whole lot slower. If you have a bunch of improvements that Search Console say you should do, it's just extremely difficult. So now suddenly they realize there's a lot more incentive to keep the sites up to date. And obviously, you're signed up with Search Console. If we find hack or any problems, we would notify you immediately. Now, we're pretty fast and we're pretty effective at detecting hacks. So yeah, that's the least you can do. And hopefully by signing up for Search Console, you find more incentives to keep your sites up to date, do all these improvements that in the end would benefit users a lot.
Yeah. I don't know, Martin, were you signed up for Search Console in the beginning, or when did that come up on your radar?
It didn't happen in the beginning. It happened eventually when I grew the blog a little more and I noticed that like a lot of people are actually using it. And it did show up a bit in search. I was like, maybe I should actually sign up for Search Console to get like a little more insights into it. And I didn't even realize that that would help me with things like manual actions and hacked issues. I didn't really have that many hacked issues because it is a static site. So that's nice. But yeah, I think it's a pretty useful tool, but I doubt that so I think like a lot of the old websites that are around are probably from people who aren't necessarily primarily concerned about their website. I don't know, like the bakery around the corner, the cafe in a small town. They want to have a website in case someone needs to discover them or wants to find out something like what's on the menu today or something like that. But they don't necessarily care enough to update or know enough to update their CMS. And they probably also don't really are the main audience for Search Console. So that can be a little tricky. I think with a bunch of CMS communities, we are now working on closing that gap. Things like SiteKit, right? That tries to get the key information into the CMS control panel so that you don't have to go to third-party tools. So I think that's a pretty cool approach.
Yeah. I also moved my whole site to a static site as well. Partially also because of all of the hacking things. I mean, I had everything set up to automatically update, and every week or so I'd get an email saying, oh, we installed another update. And at some point I was like, I get so many emails that my blog is updating automatically and none of my content has been updated for 10 years. So it's like, I might as well just make a static site out of it and also kind of protect from the hacking angle there. I don't know, from one of the things that I think came up to me out of all of the hack discussions and seeing how things are hacked on the web from Google internally and from the help forums is that, especially for smaller businesses, it makes sense to kind of offload all of that and just say, like, use some hosted platform instead of trying to host your own website. Do you think that would protect against most of these hacking things, or what additional things should small businesses kind of do?
Yeah, I think that would be a good solution. Actually, we just published a number that in 2020, we sent over 140 million messages to site owners in Search Console. That's a lot more messages than previous years, right? And the bulk of that was from sites that were coming onto Search Console for the first time. So a lot of businesses, because of the pandemic or whatnot, realized that they need better online presence. So suddenly they invest a lot more into, building the website. Even simple things like menu were suddenly updated a lot more frequently. And now you can order online to pick up or get delivered. And I noticed they also worked with a lot more hosted platforms. So I think that's a good solution if you don't have your dedicated team to manage your websites or social media presence. You can go with the hosted platform, and that probably take care of a lot of the overhead.
Cool. So what about your site, Gary? Like, when are these recipes going online, and what would happen if someone were to hack your recipes and change the butter for mayonnaise?
Oh, no.
That would probably work, actually, in many cases. But my recipes are online, actually. I keep them in Apple Notes, and they are kept in the cloud.
Oh, I mean, like, publicly online. Or can we share your password with the podcast listeners?
I would prefer not to share my password for reasons. I have recipes that I would prefer not sharing. At least not yet, because I have to perfect them. Like the dorayaki that I was eating before we started recording this podcast, that was one of those recipes, which I took the original Japanese recipe and I made it, well, different.
Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I added Swiss cheese. I'm glad that you are not obsessed with cheese.
Cool. What other things do you kind of like, what keeps you awake at night, Duy, when it comes to search quality?
Don't say the cats. I learned that's the wrong answer.
I would try not to. The other bits that kind of keep me up at night is scam. There's a lot of scams going around, all sorts of scam. But for example, customer support scam used to be a popular one. If you're looking for Gmail customer support number, a lot of people try to rank for that and would publish a false number to make you call them. And then for some reason, somehow at the end of the conversation, you'd be sending them money or buying them gift cards. There's a lot of YouTube videos you can find about how this scam works. So we did a lot of work into preventing that. We were able to protect hundreds of millions of queries since 2018 that go into customer support queries. We basically demoted most of the scam there. But I think there's also the awareness part. You know, people, if they're similar to very pure spam, very obvious spam, if you know such scam exists, you probably won't fall for that. A lot of time people, you know, click on these sites or call these weird numbers, maybe because they don't know that it's a possibility that someone were out to trick them. But apparently that's a common problem that government departments like the IRS deal with that all the time. And yeah, now it may spread to other parts of the web, but we're doing a lot to prevent scam from reaching users. But users should also research more to protect themselves against scam. It's relatively easy. Once you know that and once your family members know that, it probably won't happen.
Yeah. I don't know. For a while, they were quite visible in the search results, but it feels like I haven't seen them for a really long time. So I don't know what you've been doing, but it seems to be working. Pretty cool. One question I always get, where maybe you have some insights or some tips as well, is what if like a competitor of mine were doing something kind of spammy, where maybe they're just like keyword stuffing on their pages, or they're creating some kind of a doorway page. And I know that this is spammy because I read the webmaster guidelines, and my competitor is getting away with it. Like they're ranking right above me. What could I do there? Is that something where I can report them to, I don't know, the spam police and they'll take care of it for me? Or what are the options? Or is it even like something where I can do anything about it?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of times maybe the competitors is not necessarily ranking well because they do spam. There are so many factors when it comes to ranking. I'm sure Gary will touch on them. But if you're really concerned about that, you can report them to us. We have a spam report that we review pretty frequently. So yeah, please send us a spam report. You can also seek help in the support forum, the Webmaster Help Forum. And then, yeah, we will also be able to take a look.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. I don't know. I always feel a bit sorry for people who are seeing that kind of thing where they're kind of almost like stuck in a situation where they're thinking, well, maybe I should be spamming as well so that I can rank above my competitor who is spamming. But that always feels like a bad idea.
Yeah. If everyone was doing that, then where does that leave the users? Will they have, good user experience and good content to consume? I really don't think that's a solution. I think everyone should be focusing on doing what's right and doing what's best for not just your website, but for your users. If you focus too much on a single metric or something that you think that would, for some reason, propel your site, most of the time it would lead to a pretty negative outcome.
Yeah. I think it's also, like you said, kind of like one of those things where like you don't even know if it will actually help your site, and potentially it'll just harm your site. And then you're just digging a bigger hole for yourself rather than working on something positive for your website to improve things for the long run.
Yeah. An example of that we observed was webmasters or spammers tend to focus on improving one or two particular metrics that are external that we absolutely do not use. They, for some reason, think that if they put a lot of time and money in improving such scores, it would perform really well on Google search. I've never seen a case where that actually worked well. And I find it, pretty sad, right? Because if all of that time and money were spent on building up the website with better user experience, more functionality, writing better quality content, producing high quality images, they'll probably do a lot better on search. And that's obviously a lot more sustainable for the site itself.
Yeah. The one area where I kind of see where people, I don't know, use that almost in a reasonable way is when it comes to monetizing their site, where they just want some externally visible metric to go to some advertiser and say, like, look, my site is actually pretty reasonably placed, and if you spend some money with me, then I can get your message out to a broader audience. But it feels like sometimes I see people in the forums just saying, like, I want to improve this metric. They don't really want to kind of focus on the site overall. They're just like, I just want to change this number from 7 to 25. And they're like, why? It doesn't change much.
Yeah, I love data myself. I think, the more data you have, the better you would be at your role, whatever that may be. As a site owner or a online marketer, I think it's really great to have a bunch of metrics that you monitor and measure and try to improve, as long as you don't focus on one thing. As a site owner, I used to look at, bounce rate and time spent on pages all the time, for example, to know which content that are really hitting it off with my audience so I can improve more. Or if for some reason I find that nobody really discover our contact or support pages, why is that? Do we have a problem there? If people need to contact us, maybe we should just put it somewhere else. We write better content. So yeah, as long as you don't focus on one single thing, because we have hundreds and hundreds of ranking signal, focusing on one thing doesn't mean you will improve it across the board and we would rank your site better.
No. Yeah. So many ranking signals. I don't know, Gary, what do you think? Which is a signal like people should just focus on? Like, just pick one.
The JM authority.
JM authority. I haven't heard of that one.
You haven't?
I'll have to Google that.
I think it involves the meta cheese tag, if I remember correctly.
The meta cheese tag. Yeah. I just wish search engines would serve cheese instead of pages.
I'd be down for that.
That's a horrible idea. That's one of the worst ideas that you've ever had, actually. I will go as far.
That's something to think about for Steve.
I don't know. It's like, cheese smells kind of bad, but it can be okay, right?
Smells like a big seller for Steve 3.0.
Steve 3.0 serves cheese, not pages.
But if you only serve cheese, then you are not going to find recipes about how to prepare the cheese, how to prepare food that contains said cheese that you found. See?
Something to think about.
Okay. So tell us a bit about serving, Gary. How does it actually work?
I was telling you about that for the past 4 episodes or 3 episodes or whatever. Come on, you are not listening again. Cheese.
Cheese?
Yeah.
Cheese.
So, ranking is one of those topics where we don't want to say too much, and that's on purpose. But if you ever went to a information retrieval class, then you heard about ranking there and the public version of it, because ranking results is actually just math and figuring out first basic relevancy and then some magic and that's the part that we are not talking about. Basically, that's the magic part
It's card tricks, really. Card tricks, sometimes coin tricks.
Thanks, Martin. That was very useful. Every search engine has its own kind of magic that they are using, that they were brewing for years. And typically the part that we don't want to talk about. But other part, the thing that you can hear about in computer science classes, that's actually, there's no reason not to talk about it because it's kind of public. So once you had the query and you found a bunch of results in your index, then you will have to start ranking those results that you found before presenting them to the user. And that is done, I mean, I'm waving my hand here using hundreds of signals, but some of them are quite obvious. One that we typically refer to as topicality, basically relevancy, that is based on the query and the contents of the page. So, for example, if you are writing about cookies, lemon coconut cookies, then if the query contained those terms, then your page will be in the retrieve set. Now, search engines don't return all the results all the time, because for some queries, like for example cookies, just the term cookies, there might be billions of results, quite literally. And there's no reason to return all of them, because there's no person who is ever going to go through all of them. So what we need to do, don't make that face, because really there's no person that is going to go through billions of results. So what we need to do is limit the number to something more reasonable, say 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever the number is at the moment. How do you do that? Basically, you start ranking the pages. You apply the things that you could collect during indexing, the, PageRank, for example, again, topicality, and other simple quality signals that you can use already to create a reverse order list of the results that you intend to send up to the user from the index. And then once you created that list, the reverse ordered list, then you make a cut at whatever the number of results that you can present is, say 1,000. And then from there on, you only have to work with those 1,000 results. But those results are not finished with yet, meaning that you can still tweak those results to make them better. And that's usually where the magic is. And those are the signals, the magic signals, that we still apply on the result set to make them better for the user's query. You probably heard of RankBrain, for example, as the listener. I hope here everyone else heard about RankBrain, right? Right?
Okay.
Martin? Oh, Martin. Sorry, Martin is sleeping.
No. Martin was like, RankBrain. I have heard that before, yeah.
Okay. Phew. We don't have to fire you.
Fun fact, actually, I'm not allowed on a bunch of the documents that you guys have access to, just saying.
Okay, snap. Anyway, so we still have to reorder the documents to make them more relevant to the user's query. And that's where we would apply, for example, RankBrain. And these magic signals or magic algorithms, they can still make massive changes in the result set, but they are only working with the 1,000 that we already presented to them. Now, ranking is number-based. Basically, for each result, we will assign a number, and we calculate that number using the signals that we collected during indexing plus the other signals. And then, essentially, what you see in the results is a reverse order based on those numbers that we assigned. The magic signals or magic algorithms that we use, like RankBrain, what they do is multiply those numbers that we assign to each result by a number. Like, for example, if they want to promote a result because it was determined that that would be a better result for lemon coconut cookie, then let's say that it would multiply the results score by 2. Basically doubling its score, which means that it will jump up in the result set. I have no idea why I'm gesticulating with my hand because no one can see it.
It looks great, though. It looks great.
At this stage, thanks, Martin. Very disturbing.
You're doing well.
Anyway, if we wanted to remove a result from the set for whatever reason, we could multiply its score with 0, because then that will turn the score to 0, and then like a score with 0, why would you present that?
So just to pause you for a moment, what happens if multiple pages have the same number in the end? It's like, is it like someone throwing dice?
So that almost never happens. it's highly unlikely that you would see a result that has the same score as another result. If that happens, then it will be just fluttering, basically one jumping up and down as you refresh the page. Basically, they will just switch positions, but I think it's highly unlikely that will happen. We have all these algorithms that are actually kind of designed to like cut ties, like the HTTPS boost, which is one of those magic algorithms that would cut this tie. Like if one of the pages or one of the URLs is HTTPS or starts with HTTPS, then that would get a tiny, tiny boost to actually propel it a little further up in the result set.
I actually recently got asked if the tiebreakers are only applied in those situations or if they are always applied, they just don't have such a large impact than others.
They are always applied. They are actually, but they are designed to not have a large impact. So I can only speak for the HTTPS ranking boost in this case as a tiebreaker because, I mean, we created that with teammate Zinab. Anyway, and there the design was, or we designed it such that it will work all the time, but it will not rearrange the result set unless there is a tie. And then it would boost one of the results, well, all the results actually, but it would be more visible for the results that had a tie. And it actually happened quite often, in some locales more often than others. I still remember that in India, as in like the country language pair, it happened 17% of the cases or something like that. So it was actually pretty active in some locales.
So cool.
And less so in others.
Okay, so I guess these are like real numbers, not integers, where it's like you have 7 and the other one has 8.
I want to say these are floats.
Okay, so it's like there's a lot of room, I guess. What I'm saying in the search results, it's not that it's like there's just like one number jump, and if you can only get that one extra point, then you rank higher.
No, these are, so I was actually looking, I think you sent an email about side-colon queries, and then I was doing some query debugging, and I was looking at the side-johnmu.com results, and the scores were like like the top score was like 0.76 or something like that.
Whoa, that's like a bad site.
No, it's like for the result set, that was the top score. It doesn't mean anything. Basically, the scores are relative to the result set, not to the whole index. And then the second one would have had like 0.74, but then one of these magic algorithms kicked in and boosted a little, so it migrated one up.
Well, I got the extra HTTP ranking boost. Of course, it's boosted up now. It's like ranking number 1. I still don't know which queries, but it's HTTPS.
Oh, okay. I think for your site, we should design an FTP ranking boost.
I should move to FTP.
No, that's the article that you wrote about hacking FTP, and I still remember that.
That's a long time ago. Man.
Oh my God.
Sure.
So what happens when everyone's on HTTPS? Do we prefer sites that serve better cheese?
What?
The cheese tiebreaker.
Yeah. It's like...
Unfortunately, Matt is not around anymore, so I'm not sure that we could launch that. But I would design that.
I mean, we can launch cheese. That's easy.
Like with a catapult or...
I was about to ask, like a catapult or...
Yeah, we could go up to, I don't know, Glattalp or something and just launch cheese down from there.
They're already shaped like a projectile, so I think that's possible.
We could do a literal moonshot.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the worst ideas ever podcast. Okay.
I don't know. I think Google is missing out by not having me as like a product manager who's making decisions here.
No, I think that's the right decision, actually.
I mean, launching cheese has actual impact.
That hurt. No more cookies for you.
Oh, come on.
Well, if you're on the receiving end, that will hurt. You're right.
What, my cookies?
You said that hurts, and if you get hit by cheese, it will hurt.
Oh my gosh.
Depends on the kind of cheese. Anyway.
Can we just stop?
Okay, maybe we should take a break here. Too much cheese.
Way too much
So
cheese.
It seems like people are getting hungry. You have more? Tell me more, Gary. What did we miss?
What did we miss? We missed cookies.
Cookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kale. It's like by not going to the office, you're missing out on a lot of kale. Like imagine all of the kale that you didn't eat because you weren't in the office.
And I'm much healthier because of that.
Wait.
Because you're not eating kale?
Yeah, like mentally.
Oh.
Okay.
It improves my mental health if I'm not eating kale.
Yeah, I got that. I just, you do you,
Oh,
man.
Martin's missing the kale. I see.
No, I'm absolutely not. I really am not.
Duy, are you missing kale? Or do they have kale in Mountain View? Is that just like a Swiss thing?
They do, and I'm sorry, I'm on Gary's side for this one.
Well, that's a first.
Whew. Okay, cool.
Interesting.
Then let's take a break here. Thanks for taking the time to join us here, Duy. If people have any questions around search quality or kind of comments or ideas for search quality, where should they go?
Yeah, thank you for having me. You can file us spam reports. We are really happy to see them. We review them very frequently. If you have problems or if you think you need help with something, you can always go to the help forum, the Webmaster Help Forum. And those feedback will also reach us.
So cool. Yeah. It feels like the help forums is always a good place to go if you don't know what to do, because also the experts there, they can kind of guide you in the right direction, where if they realize that actually you should be filing a spam report or actually you should be contacting Gary directly on Twitter, then they can point you that direction.
That's always a good thing to do, yeah.
No.
He's way too free nowadays.
Or just launch cheese.
No.
No?
Just don't send any cheese or kale.
I love cheese. I don't like kale.
Whew.
Oh my.
Cool. Well, it's been fun doing these podcast episodes, and I hope you, the listener, have been enjoying them as well. At any rate, let us know how you're liking these. If there are any topics that we should be including in any of the future episodes, like drop us a note, send us a comment on Twitter, or comment wherever you comment on podcasts. And, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. So, with that, thank you, and until next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Tschüss.
Dann wird